You're a cancer survivor, right?
Correct. Yeah.
Or how do we? Am I saying it right? I could be wrong and be correct.
I mean, so I'm in remission technically. I have, I think, 2 more years of monitoring, but so like they basically told me, yeah, you're never gonna have another problem again. Asterisk being like, it could always come back in the form that it occurred the first time, and or like I did it was head and neck cancer, so I did radiation from like the neck up. So because I got exposed to all that radiation, I could get tertiary cancers as a result of that too, like skin cancer or like some other crap, like in my eyes or mouth or whatever. But they said it's very unlikely. So technically in remission, but like I'm pretty confident I'm not going to have a recurrence in the next 2 years. And then at that 5-year point, they declare you like cured, even though you could have some other recurrence somehow. But yeah, like I don't think it's inaccurate to say I'm a cancer survivor though. So yeah.
Okay. Is remission, is that like getting scanned every 6 months or something like that?
Yeah, so they do. Okay. I was getting scanned. So like for the first year, I think I did it every 3 months. And then the second year I did it every 6 months. And now I'm doing it once a year. So like I go in, they give me an MRI with contrast. So they do this really in-depth scan where they do take a picture, pump you full of this stuff that gives you some type of different type of picture, I guess, that's more detailed. And then they pump me full of that stuff, and that allows them to get another different picture and compare the two or something. But every time I get scanned, they're just like, yep, everything looks great. Like it looks amazing. And then I even got a surgery in August before I got out of the Navy that like cleaned up. I had a lot of scar tissue in my sinuses because that's where the tumor was. It up in my sinuses and it went into my brain. It cleaned all that up. So now like I can breathe really well now for the first time in my life. It's helping me sleep better, blah, blah, blah. So, but yeah, they say everything looks amazing. And so like, I'm probably better off than I was before I had cancer in a lot of ways. They fixed a lot of stuff that needed fixing.
Great, man.
Yeah. And I already know you really well spirited about all of this, but, how'd you find out? Was it pain? Were you going through pain and you just happened to go to the doctor or something?
No, it was kind of accidental. So I'm the dude that, and a lot of people do this, but I'm the dude that like, I'd have to be like bleeding out of my eyeballs to go to medical. So I waited until I was done deploying on my last submarine. We got back from the very last underway that we did. And I was going to transfer in like 3 months too. So like at the very end, I was like, hey doc, give me an ENT referral, because on the last deployment, I was blowing my nose, and on the right side, it like, I couldn't pass air. It would like pressure would back up. And I'm like, well, that's not normal. And I've always known that I've kind of had like a pretty badly deviated septum, and I was just dealing with it. Like I'd mouth breathe, I'd snore really bad. I got diagnosed with sleep apnea, all that stuff. And I was just dealing with it. I always had a really bad issue with fatigue that I attributed to just bad sleep because I couldn't breathe and I was snoring and sleep apnea and whatever. So it got really bad the last few deployments where I was having a really hard time focusing and remembering things and staying awake and alert, and I'm standing 8 hours a dive, which is like a ship safety thing every day. So, I mean, I'm like mainlining caffeine, like just trying to deal with it. But we got done. I got away with it. I didn't do anything stupid. I didn't have any mishaps. But at the very end of the sea time, I told my doc, I'm like, hey man, I really need an ENT referral. I need to get my nose fixed so I can breathe, so I can sleep, so I can blah, like have just good quality of life. Thinking that's all it was like, I just needed to get like a nose job, basically, like get it fixed so that I could breathe. So I went into the Naval Hospital. They're like, yeah, no, yep, badly deviated septum. We'll fix it. And then at one point, the ENT doctor, the lady was looking up and she's like, you got something growing up there that we'll remove as we do it and blah, blah, blah. But like, no big deal. Then they did imaging. And then when they did imaging, she's like, actually, I think this is a little more complicated than we originally thought. So they referred me to a rhinoplastician at like a bigger military hospital. So I went there. Same thing. They looked at the original imaging. Oh yeah, you got a benign growth up there. No big deal. We're going to do a surgery. We'll fix your nose. We'll pull that out. All good. Like we'll do it all at once. Not a big deal. So I come in for that surgery. They got me IVs in, gowns on. I'm in the hospital bed, getting ready to go back to anesthesia. And this Army captain walks in and goes, actually, we're not going to do the real surgery. We're just going to take a giant sample of this thing because it might be cancer. And I'm like, you're fucking telling me this right now? Are you shitting me? I got so pissed because my wife was sitting there. She has anxiety. I like just shit. Yeah, I mean, like I couldn't like curate the message so that she wasn't freaking out. So now she's like, holy shit. And she dealt with it really well in the moment, but I was about to jump out of the bed bare-assed and fight this captain. I was really pissed. And so then they roll me back. Shut up. Sorry. Dogs. They roll me back, do that. 3 days later, I've got cancer. Like they call me and they're like, you have cancer. So they said we think it's this, which it's called esthesioneuroblastoma, real long word. It's an exotic form of cancer that's like, I think 1 in 10 million is what they told me. So they like, we're not equipped to deal with this here. So they referred me to a university hospital in a big city that specialized in this stuff. And so I went there and they did a bunch of stuff to like, cause it's so rare. Like they were like, we're pretty sure this is what it is, but they called it, I think it was my imaging and stuff. They sent to like a person who's like, all they do is this, and to confirm the diagnosis, because it's something they encounter so infrequently. They wanted to be absolutely sure. So they did all that, confirmed what it was. And this was all happening in March of 20. So it was like COVID was just exploding, like where everybody's freaking out. Okay. Medical stuff's changing. They were like panicking because they were like, we don't know, because, like COVID being a respiratory thing, like in your nose, all that stuff. So like my tumor was in my nose. It was literally on your smell nerve. It's your, what do they call it? Olfactory nerve. So they were freaking out. Like, we don't know, like the rules are changing every day. They might tell us we can't do these surgeries, blah, blah, blah. So like I got my diagnosis. They confirmed the thing. I forget the word for it, but they confirmed the diagnosis. And I was in surgery. Like I found out I had cancer. I was getting brain surgery like 4 days later because they were like, we got to do this now because they might shut us down. And we don't want you to have to wait a year because it might mess you up even worse. So yeah, they rushed me into it, did the brain surgery, which that's the part I was freaked out about. I'm going to yell at my dogs again. Hang on.
Hey, audience, he has a dog. He got a dog.
Sorry. I think my wife might be getting home from work maybe, but or either that or it's the Amazon guy, but so they did the brain surgery. That's what I was panicked about. But then when that was done and I got out of the hospital and healed up, radiation was just like a slog. Like they described it to me as like this, it's going to suck. It's going to be a grind. It's 3 weeks of actually doing it, but the effects are going to last even longer, and they kind of snowball. So at the end, it's like you're wrecked at the end, but then like it's like inertia. And then so when you stop, it keeps going, and then it kind of slows down, and then you start healing. So it sucked, but it was just a grind. I'm like, that sounds like deployment, man. Like I can do that. I can be miserable for 3 months. Like it's whatever, dude. So then I did that and it sucked. And, I lost some hair. Like I used to have a super thick neck beard, and now that hair's gone apparently forever. I thought it would grow back. Then I had this it looked like I had a McDonald's M on the back of my head, because the radiation that they're shooting into my face came out the back. And so I lost all that hair back there and looked ridiculous. But yeah, man. And then it all came back, and it took a while. I still have a bunch of like weird tertiary stuff. Like I got tinnitus from that, like from the radiation. So I get ringing in my ears all the time. I get this weird thing that happens with my jaw where it like doesn't lock up, but I get this like occasionally when I open my mouth for like the first bite of food or even just talking, like I'll do it and I'll get this shooting pain right in the hinge of my jaw that I have to just like, I make a face and go like this, and then it goes away, but happens a couple times a day usually. A bunch of other stuff, just weird, like stuff that's kind of gross, but it's not a huge impact on my daily life. It's just like I got to do some stuff to maintain. But
what was your emotional response?
Yeesh, that's a whole different thing. So I was my emotional response to the cancer specifically was it was. The first reaction was like, oh, of course I have cancer. Like, and I'm just one of those like nihilist type people that I I've joked for a long time that like when I was based on my fatigue and just based on all this other stuff, I'm like, I probably have cancer. I probably have like something like some terminal illness that I don't know about. But also just, it was, I don't know. It was this feeling of like, it was supposed to happen. And it was really bizarre, but I was just like, of course I have cancer. Like, of course I do. And of course it's like, as soon as they told me there's a growth, like as soon as the first doctor said that, I immediately went there. And I was like, here we go. Like this is about to get weird. And I like knew it already, you know, like, and so when they told me, I wasn't surprised. And my mom made this comment when I told her, that it was like this really rare form of cancer. She's like, of course it is. You're an overachiever. Like you don't just get cancer. You get like this exotic, crazy form of cancer. But you know, like so that to me, it was that was the initial response. And then when I talked to the doctors, like they referred me, I end up at this university hospital. And when I talk about talking to the doctors, it was like talking to fighter pilots. They're like, we're going to cure the shit out of you. Like they were very, very confident that they were gonna fix me. And so I believed them, and I didn't have any like conscious worry about it. Really, I was sketched out by the brain surgery because the way they described it to me was, we're going to go through your nose to do it. The imaging supports that we can do that, but shit happens. And so when we get up there, we might be confronted with something that we didn't expect. So the alternative route was cut me ear to ear this way, pull my face down, cut my forehead bone out, and then they have my head tilted back and my brain would relax back and they would go in this way. And so I would have woke up with like stitches in my head and like
looking crazy,
way longer recovery. And then the surgery went longer than it was supposed to. So my wife was freaking out in the waiting room, like, oh my God, they had to cut his skull open. Turns out they didn't. It went great. I don't know why it took longer. I never got that answer, but I was panicking about that. I'm like, I could fucking die during this surgery. Like something could go wrong and I could die. So we like we got legally married before the wedding was supposed to happen because I wanted to make sure she was good and the house and all the shit would go to her. And I was trying to get a will, but then legal told me like, as long as your wife's or your family's not crazy and they don't try to go after your stuff, your wife's going to get it all by default as long as you're legally married. So then we rushed that, did that in the 3 days, like after I found out I had cancer, but before the brain surgery. Like, and it was COVID, so the courthouse was shut down. So I had to email somebody and hope that it worked out so I could get a marriage license. But they were amazing, and they got me in the next day and took care of me even though it was COVID. It was because I told them everything. I was like, you know, like, this is what's going on. I'm about to go into brain surgery and I want to get married legally. So my wife's taken care of and blah, blah, blah. But the actual emotional response was and I didn't know it consciously. I'm not worrying about it. Right. But I went into my first radiation treatment. So I'm healed up from the brain surgery. I feel great. I went into the first radiation treatment. We came out and it's 20 minutes. They do the thing. You don't really feel anything. And the negative effects, like the nausea, and I had sores in my mouth and all this burning and shit, that doesn't happen till way later because it's cumulative, right? So the first treatment, like I felt the same after I came out as I did when I went in. Got in the car, fucking just broke down, ugly crying, like fucking sobbing. And my wife's like, what's wrong? And I'm like, I don't know. Like, I'm not worried about this. Like, radiation is whatever. I know what to expect. The hard part's over already. Like, I don't know. And then during it, I mean, obviously I felt miserable as it went on. So like, and I was not in a great mood and kind of like not the nicest person to be around, but it was like, of course I wasn't, right? So my wife wasn't worried about it. But then after radiation was over and I was like healing up and getting back to normal, real short temper. I was snapping at her. I was snapping at everybody. I couldn't control my emotions. I was like spinning out a lot, like this weird, like, one little thing would fucking set me off. And it was super innocuous shit that doesn't even bother me now. But it was like, that would happen. And then my brain would just get caught in this negative feedback loop of me shitting on myself over nothing. And like, I'm an idiot for this. And then like, you know what I mean? And then I would just get to this point where I remember one day I was at a kickboxing class because they do it at the jiu-jitsu gym. And I forgot my hand wraps. And I was so fucking pissed that I forgot my hand wraps. So I left, and I live fucking 3 minutes away from the gym. jumped in my car, I'm fucking driving home, like just losing my shit. Grab my hand wraps, fucking throw them in the car, rage drive back to the gym. I'm so pissed. And I'm just like, and I got to the point where we had to shadow box at the beginning. And I'm just like, I fucking just, I don't want to be there. I'm fucking just so angry. And I had to walk out of class and just go sit in the car. And I just started fucking falling apart in the car. Wife comes out and I'm like explaining to her, like, and I had texted the coach. I'm like, I'm sorry, I had to walk out. I'm having issues. And so it like pulled a pin on a grenade that I didn't even know was there. And it was just this cumulative effect of 21 years in the military. When I was standing dive on the boat, I had a lot of anxiety about that. It was like, I had a hard time sleeping. I'd like review the night orders and study procedures and do all this shit every night the night before to make sure I was prepared, because I was worried there was going to be a fire or flooding or fucking whatever, and I wasn't going to be ready, and I was going to be the reason why fucking people died or the ship got fucked up or whatever. But I attributed the anxiety at the time to like, of course I'm doing heavy shit. Like, of course I'm going to feel this way, assuming everybody felt that way, but they didn't. And so like, I didn't think it was an issue ever. And I didn't think it was an issue that I fucking, like, I was emotionally like miserable a lot because work's stressful. And I was like, but that's the explanation. So it's normal, but it wasn't normal. And I just didn't recognize it at the time. I didn't think I needed to deal with it. And then when cancer happened, it was like, it forced it all to like it all came to the surface. Yeah. So that's when I started therapy. And it went well. And I started doing really well. Like I just therapy. And then I was doing like jujitsu. So like, I think that helped. I started sleeping better, started doing really well. And then in February of 22, I believe. Yeah, I'm pretty sure. I like, it was like this year, beginning of this year. My brother and two nieces were killed, and it's a long story that it gets kind of dark, and I don't really want to go into it, but yeah, that like everything was undone, and I was a fucking mess, and I was like, I was barely functioning, and I was already in therapy, so that was good. And he put me on Limdu, and I was on medication, and I still am. I'm gonna wean off it soon because I'm doing really well now. But I was a dumpster fire, and so like then I had to like working my way back out of that hole. But it was like I was luckily, because of the cancer thing, the response to that, I was forced to deal with what was already there. So I had a lot of tools and support structure, and that. When it happened, it got dealt with real quick. Like I was in therapy. I got referred to a psychiatrist so I could get meds. And I got put on Limdu so I didn't have to worry about work. And so it was like really lucky in a lot of ways. So that's what some of the weird stuff, like at the beginning of the cancer adventure, it was like the feeling I had. I talked to my mom about this, of course I do feeling, and like I knew it was coming. I had this feeling like I'm like it was supposed to happen for a reason. Like I needed to learn something, or like something needed to happen. And I never really, like, I knew it was possible logically, but the feeling part, I didn't ever feel like I didn't think I was going to die. I didn't think like, especially after talking to those doctors, but even in the interim before I got told all those things, I never had this feeling that I was like going to die. It was just like I was going to go through something really hard, and I needed to learn something from it, and I needed to, like, I was going to come out the other end better kind of feeling. And in a real weird way, because it's a weird way for it to happen, like I am better. Like I didn't even know I had anxiety and depression to confront, and then when that happened, it forced me to. And then I dealt with that. And then because I was in therapy for that, when that shit with my brother and the girls happened, I was already in the hands of capable people like that could help me. And they did. And thank God they did, because I was a fucking mess, dude. Like if I was ever going to go to a place where I was suicidal, like that's when it would have happened. Like really, I've had thoughts and all. I'm one of them dudes. Like I freak out mental health people when they're like, have you ever thought about doing it? I'm like, yeah, I have, but I've never gotten to like planning and ideations and stuff. that's when it would have happened. But I was already in the very capable hands, and they immediately dealt with it. And I had a great support network of like friends and family too. And so like I never came close to that. I was in a real dark place, but like just mourning, you know, like, and I did it in a really healthy way. And I got to talk to my therapist about it. And I got to talk to other people. Jeff Bayless, being the saint of a human that he is, I recorded. So my therapist said, you should write down stuff about the relationship with those people and just memories and stuff, because they're gone, there may come a time where you start forgetting things and you're going to want to remember them. And I was like, oh, that's a great idea. And I was like, well, what if I recorded it? He goes, what do you mean? And he knew about the podcast stuff because it was hard to talk about certain things without bringing it up. So I just explained it to him. And he's like, yeah, no, I think that's a really good idea. And I was like, because there's a guy that I talked to that I think would be really great to like work through this stuff with. So I actually recorded. I mean, me and Jeff I'd probably like 2.5, 3 hours. And I don't think I ever plan on publishing it. It's just for me to like listen back to. But like we talked through a bunch of it when I felt like I was ready to. And I thought like that helped a lot too, you know, like so. And I have it to like look back on because I told a bunch of stories about Steve and the girls to like give Jeff context and because that was kind of part of the point. But yeah, man, in a weird way, I am an infinitely better human being in an infinitely better place and happier than I've been in my entire adult life. And I think that a large part of it was that I dealt with all those things. And then retiring helped a lot too, like just completely removing the stressor of active duty. Like that was a big part of the anxiety. And I was having a hard time going back and forth about like, should I retire or not? I had this complex about like, I had a lot of people that thought I would be a really good cob. And that based on that, people telling me that, both like junior people that wanted me to be their cob and even people from the podcast saying, God, I hope I end up on your boat. And then like my mentors too, like that CMC I told you guys about, he was really excited for me to be a cob. He thought, I can't wait to get you on a boat, you know? So I thought I was letting people down by considering retiring and like prioritizing my physical and mental health and all that kind of stuff. And so I had to work through that. And then the cob that was my cob when I made chief, he's like I look at him, he's like my chief dad, you know, like he built me. He's the reason I'm the way I am in a lot of ways as a chief. I talked to him. He had throat cancer and found out about my cancer. And so we got on the phone and talked just about that. But then the conversation naturally went to so what are you going to do? Are you staying in? Are you going to go be a cob? Whatever. And I kind of let him know where my head was at about it. And he told me, he said two things and it was like, I know the dude loves me, but like, I didn't know, I had the complex about the cook thing and there's reasons for that. But from that boat where I kind of thought he didn't think I could do it. And he told me he said two things. He said, one, you'd be a really great cob, which was a big validating thing for me. But then he goes, but you don't have to be. And then we went into this conversation about it, and it like all of the anxiety and like apprehension I had about making a real decision, even though like logically I felt like I should retire, just fucking gone. Like he just gave me permission to retire that I didn't even know I needed. You know what I mean? But like when he said it, I was just like, I'm good. Like decision made. Yeah. And I felt great about it after that. And then, I don't know. And so like retiring was a huge part of it too. And now I'm happier than I can ever remember being in my entire adult life. And, just more at ease about everything and like happy and prioritizing things. Like I got to go to that cheese spinning for that kid that was pretty local, a couple hours away. And then I just flew to Boston for a couple days because my best friend got promoted to senior chief. And it's like I can do shit like that now. And I prioritize things like that now because it's important to me. And I want to be there for those things because that's more important to me than like my continuing it as a CMC where I continue to miss shit. Like I can't be there. I can't see my family as much. I can't be there for big events. I can't like prioritize people and experiences and relationships over that shit. But now I can. So like it's everything, man. Like I'm in an infinitely better place, and I would have never plotted this course thinking that's how I needed to get there. You know what I mean? But it's in a weird way. It's I didn't want those things to happen, but it's extremely fortunate that they did, because I don't know that I would have ended up in the same place. And so it's a real weird thing to contemplate. But
Yeah,
you know,
it's crazy, man. You talked a lot about like adversity. You talk about the adversity of cancer, but it's so many adversities that people go through, and that was a
yeah,
heavy story in itself. And as you were talking, I was just thinking about like all of these things that's like characters, and I was thinking about the brain probably being what the brain is like.
mhm,
The alpha, most likely the
yeah,
leader, the strongest one in the mix. But you got your heart, you got your body, you got your
mhm,
your soul or spirit, or however you look at life. And I could see myself like with my brain trying to lead the charge. Like,
mhm,
yeah, I'm good, I'm good, I'm good, I'm good, I'm
mhm.
good, I'm good. But my body, like, yo, like,
Right.
we're not good.
And
Like
like
my spirit,
yeah,
like,
your
yo, slow
unconscious
down.
mind gets a fucking vote, man. And
Yeah,
it's a really bizarre thing to feel like you're 10 feet tall and bulletproof one day. And then the next day, like I couldn't control myself. I couldn't.
yeah,
I would have fucking panic attacks where it's like I wasn't in control of my body's response, and I wasn't in control of my emotions. And I didn't, it's a real bizarre feeling to like not be
yeah.
in control. Like I
Cause
didn't think that was
yeah.
possible.
Yeah,
It's
because
crazy.
I personally think you could will your way out of any
Yeah.
fucking thing. You know what I'm
Yeah.
saying?
You,
Like,
I did too,
I
man. Like,
yeah. Yeah, and it's
yeah. And
not
then
true. And
now
I
I'm,
talked to my mom. Yeah, I
yeah.
talked to my mom and my wife, and like sometimes I talk to them about the same thing. And I know
Yeah.
that was like I talk a lot about Steve Jobs, but that was like his thing too. When he
Mhm.
thought he could will his way.
Mhm.
It's like no,
Not
this
real. Yeah. And
you can't do it.
it's not, I don't think it's like a non-factor. Like I think your attitude and your outlook and approach and all those things, like conscious and unconscious, the things that you, because that's something that like learning more and more about how the unconscious mind affects you. It's like I am very like, my wife will be like, she watches weird like reels and stuff, and she's into like dramatic stuff, or like weird like world star, or like just shit like confrontational or like weird
Yeah,
drama stuff. And she's like, "Hey, I want to show you this thing." I'm like, "What is it?" You know what I mean? And she'll tell me what it is. I'm like, "I don't want to see that." And it's
oh,
not.
they
And
want to
she's like,
implant it.
It's not a big deal." And I'm like, "It's a big deal to me." Like shit like that affects me mentally, and I never thought it was, man. I thought I was just had like the mental fortitude of like a fucking, I don't even know, like a Tibetan monk, and like I had the broader shoulders and a deeper, harder work capacity than everyone else, and I could take it, and I can do things other people can't. Like I thought I was superhuman until I wasn't, and then I had to confront that reality, and I learned a lot about like the inputs. Like shit gives me anxiety, man. Like I don't want to
Yeah,
see that shit. It affects my mood. It affects my outlook. It's going to affect how I interact with you. I don't want that input, man. Get that shit away from me. And if I didn't have
yeah,
to be on social media, I wouldn't be. I don't want that input. There's a lot of shit I see that I'm just like, I don't want, I just don't, I'm not interested. It's fucking negative, and I'm aware of how I process it consciously. Could I take watching that video? Yeah, probably. But I am also aware that my unconscious mind gets a vote, and I don't want to feed it that bullshit. You know, like I don't want that
yeah.
stuff to be a part of the
You
conversation.
gotta. Yeah, you gotta control your algorithm, your
Yeah,
own personal internal algorithm.
right.